Hi everybody, it's 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock is with me, Father Warner. We are in Saturday of the 24th week in Ordinary Time. We are at the end of another week and at the end of our study of 1 Corinthians. Today we're going to do 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 35 to 37 and then verse 42 to 49. And I've entitled today's teaching, Death, Where is Thy Sting? So let's go to the text. But some will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body do they come? Fool, what you sow does not come to life unless it dies. And as for what you sow, you do not sow the body that is to be, but a bare seed, perhaps of wheat or of some other grain. So it is with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown is perishable, what is raised is imperishable. It is sown with dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a physical body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a physical body, there is also a spiritual body. Thus it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last man, Adam, became a life-giving being. But it is not the spiritual that is first, but the physical, and then the spiritual. The first man was from the earth, a man of dust. The second man is from heaven. As was the man of dust, so are those who are of dust, and is the man of heaven, so those who are of heaven. Just as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we will also bear the image of the man of heaven. The word of the Lord. Now, a few members in the Corinthian community who believed that they had better spiritual gifts than others were now suggesting, as I thought yesterday, were now suggesting that the resurrection of man was something that was extremely absurd. St. Paul in this text is very clear. If Christ, he says, did not raise, our proclamation of our faith has been in vain. Our faith, he says, has been in vain. Our testimony that God raised Christ from the dead is false, and he says we continue to live in our sin. This is what we did yesterday in chapter 15, verse 13 to 17. Now, for Paul, death does not have the last word. In fact, if you read the rest of the text in verse 54, death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? So death for Paul does not have the last word. If it did have the last word, then his courage and the courage of every Christian would be what would best be called foolish bravado, just to pretend that this has happened when it's not happened. Now, from verse 35, it's like Paul holds no punches back. Yeah, he begins by calling them fools, he says. But anyway, so he asks the community, he says, not to be deceived. This is a term he has used twice before. Do not be deceived by what others teach you. So he encourages, he exhorts the people to keep good company, because he says bad company ruins good models. Yeah, read verse 33 of chapter 15. It's very beautiful. Do not be deceived. He says bad company ruins good models. This is the verse just before our text begins. Now, Paul is clearly telling the Corinthians that their association with the Sadducees, as I said, did not believe in the resurrection. Also, their association with the pagans, the Greek philosophical types, who did not believe in the resurrection. We know this in Acts chapter 17, verse 31 to 32. So their association with these kind of people have led to these false conclusions about the resurrection of the dead. So he appeals once again to those spreading this kind of heresy. He says, come, he says, to a sober and a right mind and sin no more, because some people have no knowledge literally of God, and yet they keep on blabbering about it. We see this even in our days. There are people who have so little knowledge, but when you have spiritual teachers who teach, they like to rubbish it. Yeah, they like to rubbish it with human earthly wisdom, something that St. Paul has been contesting from the first chapter. Yeah, he says your knowledge, this knowledge that you claim, is the source of your downfall. And very often you will find that religious teaching is attacked by a secular worldview. And I always say, you are entitled to your worldview, I'm entitled to mine. I don't attack yours, you don't attack mine. I am allowed to propagate my view. But if you noticed how offensive the secular world is, even on Facebook and Twitter, and they are offensive the minute they take offense, and they are very vitriolic in what they want to say. And you'll find that very often Catholics and Christians don't defend their faith enough. They are very shy of their faith. Yeah, I often said people in Catholicism speak of God more than they take the name of Jesus. Yeah. And I remember watching some of Billy Graham's teachings. He has no doubt, he always, our Lord Jesus Christ, yeah, clearly proclaiming Christ in everything. So St. Paul, in condemning these so-called Corinthians who pretend to be wise and who disregard the resurrection of the dead, he says this is to your shame, and he says this to shame them and shame the doubts that they were spreading. And I think we need sometimes to shame even Catholics in love, those who like to, in particular social standings, be seen as mod and popular, who love to say I'm a Christian but say that, oh, Jesus is just another God. These are people who we need to very vociferously sometimes even contest, first with love but then vociferously. Today when I'm at a social gathering, I very rarely go for one, but even if among friends, if somebody says something like, oh, I don't go for mass, I immediately in public reprimand them. Yeah, and I say this is not something that you should be boasting about. But I do it gently, I don't go heavily on them. Now Paul has no problem in this text of reprimanding them very seriously. So when you look at the text, you realize that Paul now turns from the fact of the resurrection, which for him is a given, that resurrection happened is a given. He turns from the fact of the resurrection of the dead to explain his point in a very descriptive way. Now remember one thing, in chapter 15, nobody is disputing the resurrection of Christ. They were disputing the resurrection of the dead, that is of all of us. Yeah. So he now moves to explaining his point in a descriptive way. Now Paul's argument in this important passage is that there is both a radical difference and a real continuity between the body that dies and the body that is raised up by God's power. You see, Paul recalls the miracles of creation in the transformation of a bare seed into a plant. We'll see this in verse 36 to 38. So he gives you the example of that bare seed that turns into a plant. Paul says, look, he says, our bodies are like seeds, and like seeds that grow into resurrection bodies. A seed, he says, grows into a resurrection body. What does he mean? He says when a plant is sown, it is not sown as a plant. You don't take a plant and sow it. Yeah, it's not sown in its final form as the final plant, but it is sown as a seed. Now, it is God who gives the seed, he gives it a body as God has chosen. So every seed is transformed into a different plant with a different body. There are different seeds. Every seed is transformed into a different plant with a different body. When you plant a wheat seed, a big wheat seed does not come up. You don't get the same thing. Yeah, that's what he's trying to say. You plant a seed, you don't get a big seed. You get a tree. You get wheat sheaves. So instead of a stalk, instead of a seed, you get a stalk of wheat that grows, and that's the point he makes. You don't sow a small seed, and in the same way, very often we speak very casually of our bodies being the same in heaven. I mean, imagine if you die at 93 and you're doddering on earth. Why would you want to have a 93-year-old body doddering in heaven? And that's the point that Paul is making. We are completely like Jesus. We have transformed. Yeah, resurrection. The beauty of the resurrection is that at the resurrection we will be able to recognize each other. So even though our resurrection or resurrected bodies come from our present bodies, even though it comes from our present bodies, we should not expect that they will be the same bodies or just some kind of improved bodies. Yeah, the resurrection is not a resuscitation. Lazarus was resuscitated. Remember, Jesus gave him his life back. Lazarus, who went into the tomb, came out as Lazarus out of the tomb. But then Lazarus died. Yeah, and his heavenly body is not going to be like his earthly body. That was resurrection. What happened to Lazarus on earth was resuscitation. He was given life again. So by using this analogy, one can reflect on the miracles of God's creation and then use it to understand really the resurrection. That's what he's doing. He's giving you an analogy, a description to understand how our resurrected bodies will be. Now, I understand that it's hard to understand what our resurrection bodies will be like. So Paul employs a sense of contrast also to help us. He gives us 4 antitheses, and you'll see that from verse 42 onwards. 4 antitheses between our present body and our future resurrected body or our future resurrection body. And now on all counts, you will see that the resurrection body or the resurrected body will be far better than our present body. So the resurrection body will win on all 4 counts. Now, what does he say? He says, what is sown, he says, is perishable. But what is raised, look at verse 42, what is raised is imperishable. What is sown is in dishonor. What is raised in honor. We die in dishonor very often with the sins of ours, raised in honor. What is sown is weakness. What is raised is power. And what is sown in a physical body is raised not as a physical body but as a spiritual body. So not resuscitation but resurrection. Now the thrust of the thrust of these antitheses that Paul uses is that the spiritual body that is raised, while linked to the physical body as the seed to a plant, has a unique glory, qualitatively far superior to the weak body which dies. And that's the point he's making. But arguments based on logical deductions from nature can also be insufficient. People can poke holes into that argument. So therefore he begins to contrast the matter of Adam. Look at verse 45. So he contrasts Adam, the first man, with Christ, the last Adam. The first man, in God's eyes, the first perfect man, Adam, gave us one kind of body. The second perfect man, Jesus, the last Adam, can give us another kind of body. Now, remember that Adam was made perfect by God. Adam fell because of his sin. So, his imperfection was made perfect by Christ. Christ is the, as he calls it, the life-giving spirit. Yeah, he says the first Adam, look at verse 45, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving being. We have all, in that sense, borne the image of the first Adam. And those who put their trust in the last Adam will also bear his resurrection image. From the first Adam, we are all made of dust, as he says. But from the last Adam, we can be made heavenly. For believers, my dear friends, this promise is sure, that we shall also bear the image of heaven, of the heavenly man, of Jesus, of our Lord. That is a promise that has been given to us. Now, the best example we have of what a resurrection body will be like is to see what Jesus' resurrected body was like. The resurrection body of Jesus was material. Remember, after the resurrection, Jesus appears to his disciples. It was a material body, and it was a body that could eat. Luke chapter 24 verse 39 to 43. Yet, while it was a material body, it was not bound by the laws of nature. And if you want to understand what I mean by that, read Luke chapter 24 verse 31, Luke chapter 24 verse 36 to 37. Yeah, that's a bit of homework that you can do. So with this, my dear friends, we come to the end of studying St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. I've done that for 2 weeks. If you haven't caught up with it, I'd recommend that you go back and start listening to all the teachings, because St. Paul had some fantastic teachings for us, which are so practical for our everyday life. Now, from next week, we're going to begin for 2 weeks. We're going to do the Book of Proverbs. We're going to do the wisdom literature. So we'll study wisdom literature, but 3 books in particular. I think we do Job, we do the Book of Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes. So we will study these books over the next 2 weeks. For an entire week, we will, I think, do the Book of Job, if my memory serves me right. Yeah, at 52, my memory is not as sharp as it used to be, but it's still working. Thank you, everybody. I want to appreciate your kindness to our ministry. For all of you especially, who have been so faithful in watching and so faithful in sharing these teachings. There was somebody who told me, I have seen every single video from the very day you first began. I don't have an award to give you, but I do hope that these teachings have filled your heart with love and joy. And that's not love and joy for me, but love and joy for Jesus. And that would make me extremely happy. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, leave your comments at the end of this video. And thank you to all of you who continue to support our children's home in Goa, run by Lenny and Nadia Suarez for the Love, Joy, Hope Foundation. I've asked Lenny to send me a couple of photographs so that we can start posting them at the end, just so that you can see the home, see the children. We've had 2 new children. I think I mentioned this. Kishan came to us some time ago, and now a little girl has come to us also with her mother. And we hope that this lovely home and lovely family of ours in Goa grows. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, where we do another round of Why Do Catholics? God bless you.